Hi guys, it's Miss Laura and Em, and we're going to present to you today the first grade lesson. So in Montessori, in our classroom, we have 5 great lessons, and these lessons tell the story of how our world came to be the way it was. So today, we're going to start way back at the very beginning of all the things, and we're going to tell the story of the coming of the universe. So, here we go. I'm going to tell you the story of something that happened a long time ago. It wasn't just 100 years ago, and it wasn't just 1,000 years ago, and it wasn't even a million years ago. It was actually almost 15 billion years ago. It was before people lived. It was before the dinosaurs. In fact, it was before there was even an Earth. Now, if there was no Earth, there was, of course, also, there were no people. So nobody could see what actually happened. But scientists have studied, and they've experimented, and they've guessed, and they've learned, and they've done tests and all kinds of things. And this is what they have figured out has happened. In the beginning, there was nothing. Just the nothingness of space. Everything was dark and cold. Not cold like your room at night. Not cold like ice. Hopefully your room isn't that cold at night. That was supposed to be something else. Not dark like your room at night, and not even dark like a cave, but even darker than that. Not cold like ice, and not cold like winter, even colder than that. Can you even imagine a place so dark and cold?
Whoa.
Really dark and cold. Okay, long ago, so that's our setting. Long ago in this space, everything was tightly packed into a tiny ball of matter. This ball of matter contained all of the matter in the entire universe. Some people have called this ball the singularity, which I kind of like saying. All the particles of matter, what we now call neutrons, were packed into this, and they were so closely packed that if we took even a tiny bit and we weighed it here on Earth, it would weigh millions of pounds. That's how closely packed it was. Now, no one knows how and no one knows why, but suddenly this gigantic, or this tiny ball of matter suddenly exploded, sending particles that composed it out into every direction. Suddenly, there was light. Now, this first explosion must have been the most titanic event to ever happen ever in the history of anything. But there was no one there to see it. Even if there had been anyone to see it, they wouldn't have heard anything, even though we did that big clap. Because empty space does not conduct sound. What they would have experienced is a big, blinding light. And that blinding light, brighter than anything we can even imagine, that blinding light would have lasted for 10,000 of our Earth years. 10,000. During these first 10,000 of our Earth years, this bright ball of energy expanded in all directions, and the infernal heat began to cool and get cooler. Until about 10,000 years after what we call the Big Bang, the light began to fade, and the universe began to look black and empty again. However, it was not empty, because all those neutrons that had been in the singularity had changed now into protons with electrons swirling all around them. We call this hydrogen today, and they continued their movement through space away from the Big Bang. Now, even then, even in the very beginning, there were laws that had to be followed. One law said that smaller, lighter things would be pulled towards heavier objects. We call this law gravity. Another law was that when something revolves around in a circle, it pulls away from the center. We call this law centrifugal force. Another law says that when things are moving, they will keep moving unless something stops them. And if it is still, it will stay still. We call this law inertia, and we do not have a handy demonstration for that, sorry. All of the particles in the hydrogen gas, they all obeyed this law. These laws, sorry. Then, as they moved through space, they separated into droplets like water flung from a glass. These giant droplets formed into galaxies. So that's how big these droplets were. Within these galaxies were millions of balls of hot gas. As gravity pulled these balls inward more and more tightly, many of those balls burst into flame. Okay, not light things on fire anymore. Now these stars were very, very far away from each other. Light travels really fast. It travels 186,000 miles per second. So, just to give you an idea of that, if we could get in a race car and drive at 100 miles per hour around the world, it would take us 10 days and nights to go around the world. However, it takes light only a second to go around the world 7 times. That's how fast light travels. Yet, even moving that fast, it takes the light from the furthest star billions of years to reach us. So that's how far away they are, really far away. Now there are billions of stars. If each star was a grain of sand, we could cover the entire state of Texas with a pile of sand, that was as tall as the length of 3 football fields. That is a lot of stars. Out of all of these billions of stars, though, there is one star that is really special to us, and we call that star Sol. It is the star in our solar system. That's why it's called the solar system. Now, the sun may not seem very big to us when it's in the sky, but in fact, it is huge. It doesn't seem very big because it is so far away. If we flew to the sun in a spaceship at 100 miles per hour, day in and day out, it would take us 106 years to get there. So very far away. Actually, though, it is so big that 1,000,000 Earths could fit inside the sun. So I hope you can see, this is a picture of the sun here. And guys, if you can see this tiny little dot here, that's the Earth. That's how much bigger the sun is than the Earth. Really, really, really big. Now, in the beginning, the Earth was not at all like it is now. In the beginning, it was just a hot ball of gas. And so were all of the planets. Here's a picture of our solar system and all of our planets now. But all of these planets were just hot balls of gas at the beginning. However, the balls of gas weren't big enough or heavy enough to burst into flames like our sun did, but they were very hot. There we are. However, they were also traveling through the coldness of space, that very, very cold space that we talked about. So as the Earth traveled, it cooled a little. And as it cooled, some of the particles really were attracted to each other and formed new kinds of matter. Other particles did not like each other and they stayed away from each other. As the particles cooled, they began to change form from gas to liquid to solid. The solids were very, very tightly packed together. They kept their own shape. The liquids were much looser and they rolled around on themselves. Liquids take the shape of the container that they're in, and we can pass our hands through them. Tink. Gases are even more spread out. In fact, we often cannot even see them.
Wait.
But there they are, moving around the room. When the gas cools, it becomes a liquid. When a liquid cools, it becomes a solid. That is just what happened as the Earth moved through the coldness of space. The cold air pushed down on the Earth and then brought buckets of heat up away from the Earth. It was almost like a dance with the heat moving up and then the cold air coming down. So very slowly, the earth began to cool. One of the things that formed was water, and in fact, all of the water on the entire planet, every single drop, was formed at this time. As soon as the water touched the earth, it turned back into clouds or vapor. In the coldness next to space, the water cooled and formed a cloud. So here's the cloud that formed. Soon, that cloud of vapor covered the entire earth and blocked out the sunlight. And that made it even cooler. So the surface of the earth cooled even more and finally became a solid. But the boiling liquid rock beneath the crust still had to follow the laws of the universe. And one of those laws said that hot things had to move outward. So the melted rock burst through the crust of the earth and covered the surface of the earth with volcanoes. Slowly, slowly, the water continued to come down and cool the earth. It rained for 1,000,000 years. 1,000,000 years it rained. And the dance went on with the water coming down and then turning into vapor and coming back up, down and up. The earth cooled more and more and more until at last the water stayed on the earth and it filled all the low places. These filled spaces became oceans. Eventually, the conditions on earth were just right and perfect for life to appear. But that is a story for another day. All of this happened billions of years ago. But even to this day, everything that exists has to follow those laws of the universe. And so it was that the earth was made. It is a gift for us to love and care for.